Welcome back, Rainmakers, to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Murph, and today we're going to be talking about what is going on with Bitcoin, what is going on with Cardano and Polkadot. We're going to look at some technical analysis, but more I want to talk about the bigger picture of what's going on in this bull market, and I wanted to kind of share some insider information with you about what might be coming in a few months. So, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get this party started. Or John McAfee says he is eating his own. Alright. Yeah, so I do have the new setup I've been working on, playing around with it a little bit myself and getting used to it. I'm liking it a lot. Hope you're liking it too. So I want to share with you some patterns that I have been noticing on Bitcoin. And so January and February were some fantastic months for the crypto space and some amazing returns, particularly on the altcoins. And since right at the end of December, Bitcoin's been trading sideways and downwards. And is that normal? I mean, we're in a bull market. Why in the heck would Bitcoin be retracing, right? So how normal is that? If you're new in this space, that's usually the question you're asking. So I did want to show you on TradingView this chart. Now I've drawn these lines in and I will show you how to get to this yourself. So if you open up a new window and you go to tradingview.com, you're still not looking at what I was looking at, but in the ticker symbol, you put in Brave New, there we go, Coin Liquid Index for Bitcoin. Okay, so we're still not looking at what we were looking at because we have to click on the full featured chart button, and bammo, that's what we were looking at. So if you don't have a subscription, then it'll pop up ads once in a while, and that's okay. TradingView is great. It's a great way to look at the specifics of a token that you want to look at. So we're going to come back here to where I have these drawn in. Now, one thing that might be different if your chart looks different than this, it's because I have it on the logarithmic scale. And what that does is, as it goes really high, it shows, I guess, I don't even know how to explain the logarithmic scale. If I were to click this off, then the chart looks very different. But if you notice, we're here, way back here in October 2011 and $2, and we're almost at 50,000 here, and right here is at $20. And so the logarithmic scale uses logarithms to kind of pull it back in a way to analyze it. And so let's take a look at some of the prior bull markets. So we have 2013 in this bull market here. We have 2017, right at the end of 2017 was the end of this bull market here. What I want to do is I want to chart out on the logarithmic scale this pattern from the bottom of the bear market to the top here. And so this will often help you understand the pullbacks, but also the growth levels from there. So you'll see that even though it went all the way up to almost $1,200, it then had some severe retracements all the way back to under $200. Before then, trading sideways and then eventually taking off again. But notice where they started to have some resistance on this scale. They started to have some resistance, if I were to pull this over, right at the 1.618 line. Interesting, huh? Okay. So why don't we take this chart, and we're actually going to move the whole chart. Let's see if we can move it up to this. And we're going to move this up to the bottom of that bear market. Okay. So it went up from a low of about 182. It went up to almost $20,000 before then retracing almost to the 88.6 line, before then eventually going up and taking off. And notice where we're having some resistance right now, this whole 1.618 line. So it's repeating a pattern that we've seen in the past. And so even in bull markets, we don't go up for forever. And so this is another TradingView window that I opened up beforehand. so that we could just look at it on the hourly scale. Now this is Bitcoin versus USD on Binance, and we're on the 1 hour time frame. And so this is just so that I could look at it a little bit more clearly. Now the pattern that it was trading at before it broke out, was trading on a trend like this, before it then broke out to the upside here, and then it broke that pattern down. And so I want to share with you what I'm seeing. Now there's a lot of pressure for it to go both ways. There's a lot of bigger players, whales, that want to come down more so they can accumulate far more at these cheap prices. However, the problem is there's a lot of pressure buying up this supply and buying up the supply from the miners. And so there's a lot of competing interests. So if I were to put these lines back in, there was that breakout. But I want to show you something on a closer timeline. Now I frequently talk about this pattern, and there's a different technical name for it, but I call them simply W's. And they look like this. And what happens is the other side of the W doesn't just go straight like this. It actually frequently goes like this. And then when it looks like it's about to break out, it does a little leg down before then breaking higher. And sometimes this leg down comes all the way down to this line. And it would seem like it might be following that pattern. Now, part of the reason I don't trade on leverage is because when you're wrong on things like this, you can lose a lot of money too in the middle of a bull market. And maybe it doesn't break up from here, and maybe sometimes there's a wick down that traps a lot of people before going up. And so if you're trading on leverage, this wick down will just liquidate your leveraged long in the middle of a bull market. And so trading on leverage is very risky, very much riskier than certain people make it sound, and you can lose tons of money in the middle of a bull market. Now when you're right, you make tons of money too. But what I don't like about it is until your education level is super high and super strong on this, essentially it's just a different form of gambling, especially because when you're trading on leverage, you're actually charged interest every day depending on how leveraged you are. So the clock ticking away at you actually is eating away at your profits. And so I see it as a different form of gambling, whereas when you're spot trading in a bull market, there's no interest ticking away at you, especially because you haven't borrowed the money, right? Hopefully you haven't. And you're investing with your own capital, and so there's no interest. There's the ability to be patient, and patience is required in investing to be successful. Like Warren Buffett says, who never gets technology stocks right because he knows like old-fashioned stuff really well, but when it comes to technology, he is almost always wrong. But his bigger principle that he's talked about is investing is a way of transferring wealth from the impatient to the patient. And that's exactly what it is. So is Bitcoin going to do well? Absolutely. In this year, is it likely to continue what it has been doing? Well, I would say it is highly likely. Now, could something happen and totally evaporate all this like World War III? Yes, it's just not likely, but it could happen. And so that's why it's important when you're not trading with borrowed money and you're trading with your own and you're only trading with money you can afford to lose, then it's okay, because it's a small percent chance that something major could drastically interrupt this pattern that has followed for like the past 10 years. It could happen. It's just not likely. But in the case that it does happen, if you're trading with money that you can afford to lose, then it doesn't wipe you out if it does happen, right? So I did want to say, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel and liked it, I would love it if you would join us Rainmakers and subscribe to the channel and like it. Now, all you Rainmakers who have been my supportive subscribers for a long time, if you see that the likes are below 50% of the views, could you always go ahead and hit that like button? It helps me tremendously. Okay, let's get on to some fun stuff that we want to be talking about too, which is Cardano and what is going on with Cardano. So you can tell I was playing around with the charts earlier, and I was looking at my thoughts on it. So this is Cardano versus USD, calculated by TradingView on Binance Exchange. And so I was drawing out a fib retracement here. So it came from its lows here at about 13 cents a while ago. Now, it did trade even lower than that if I were to look at the daily, but I started it there on the daily to look at where we are. Now, it has retraced from here, this high point, all the way down to here, and it could come further and bounce off of some of these resistance lines. Now, because so much good news keeps coming out about Cardano, there's been so much upward pressure on it that it hasn't had a lot of big pullbacks. If you see, this pullback here hasn't even hit the 38.2 line, and sometimes you'll see pullbacks along the 50% or the 50% pullback, and that hasn't happened either. And sometimes you'll even see come back to the 61.8, because what often happens even in a bull market is you'll have 3 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes you even have 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And what happens is you get a lot of momentum when the elastic band is pulled back like this, and the farther it's pulled back through a retracement like this in a bull market, usually the bigger the run once it does start running. And so these things are a healthy, necessary part of gains to happen, and it just requires some patience. This is why I don't suggest trading on leverage unless you're extremely good at it like Angel is. And the best way to get started on it is actually trading and using the trading principles, trading with no money for at least 6 months after you've already learned what you're looking at, and it helps you distance emotionally from it. Because what's easy being human beings is to get our emotions tied into it. When our emotions get tied into it, we almost always lose. Because when things are pulling back, we get total fear and we sell when we shouldn't. And when things are going up, we get total fear of missing out and we buy more when we shouldn't. Does that make sense? Just because we're humans. And so part of the way professional traders go that route is they trade with paper money for a while before they even start trading with real money. And then when they start trading with real money, they start at like $10. And then they increment into, once they're doing really well with the $10, they later increment up to like $100 or even $1,000. But they usually don't put huge amounts of money on the line, because when you do, that then gets your emotions involved in it. So some professional traders literally trade as little as $100 to $500 a day, trying to make a profit of, say, $500 per day trading that. And so I know that there's some channels and some YouTubers who are very excited about leverage, and they tell people, oh, this is all you have to do, and you just have to follow these indicators, and you too can make money like I just did. And what they usually don't do is fully disclose their losses versus their wins. And if you were to actually look at their history, you would find they lose probably more than they win in general in the middle of a bull market. All right, so let's look at Cardano. Where is it going to go from here? Now, it could keep retracing, and it could come all the way back to, say, 81 cents. Could come back to here. Or there could be another announcement like Cardano being launched on Coinbase. And I do think that will be in the future when they finish some of their Goguen updates. And then you can go straight to not only Cardano on Coinbase, but that you can stake on Coinbase, delegate from there, and get your staking rewards all from Coinbase Cold Storage, which is something that Charles talked about like 14 months ago, that he was talking with Coinbase about enabling staking on Coinbase cold wallet storage, so your funds are almost unhackable, and that you can still get your passive staking rewards on it. So my guess for the delays in that is they're working on getting all that set up before then allowing on Coinbase. And so for that, probably they're just waiting till Goguen is either launched. Well, probably it'd be smart. That way they don't have to try to update their nodes. They can just wait till Goguen is launched and get all the code there. So I would imagine that's a little bit in the future, and don't be surprised if we do some retracing and some pulling back of the rubber band before we take off. So let's look at DOT. Now this is DOT versus USDT on Binance. So essentially if you were to come to DOT versus, you can go versus US Tether. It's the same thing. I like Binance for when I'm looking at the daily and the hourly, as long as there's enough history on there, because it's a fairly big exchange, and so not as much volatility, so you get a better indication of exactly where the prices are at without as many crazy wicks. Some of the smaller exchanges, one big order can cause a huge wick down or a huge wick up, and you just get less of it on Binance because there's a lot more liquidity there. All right, so what is happening could be something like this. It actually could be something a little bit more like this, which means we'll either have a break up or a break down from here soon. Now, in figuring out where to put your lines, sometimes it is a little bit easier if you come to your chart. That's not what I want to look at. I want to go here, and I want to go to lines. And so this makes it easier to put your lines in a good place. There's no exact place to put your lines. And then you come back and go to the candles. And there we go. So probably it will stay within this pattern until it breaks out. And what you're looking for in a breakout to know, for those swing traders out there that are trying to spot trade it, what will happen is if it breaks down from here, you don't know exactly that it's going to then break down. What happens is if it breaks down from here, it usually will come right back. And so then if it bounces off this and heads down, then it's usually going to break down from there. Or if it comes up and it breaks through, sometimes there's a little, like a little trick it plays, and it comes back in and then continues in the pattern. So what you're looking for if you're trying to trade that, you would be looking for it to then come back, retest, and then when it starts heading up from there, that's usually your indicator that most likely it is a breakout higher on DOT. Now these are two third-generation blockchains that are solving some very good problems out there that I'm very excited to see what they're going to do in the coming years. And so these are two of the biggest projects. Of course, the founders of both of these were two of the original founders of, or co-founders of, the Ethereum blockchain, which has been the biggest, most successful, I guess, non-Bitcoin blockchain out there. The first one to really enable smart contracts, and that really helped develop the DeFi ecosystem, etc. It's just Ethereum has some setbacks because, I mean, when you're being first, there's a lot of things, problems that you run into that you don't know how to solve right away. So both Dr. Gavin Woods, who founded Polkadot, and Charles Hoskinson learned what problems they needed to solve before they then worked on their solutions for these new blockchains, and we refer to them as third-generation blockchains, and Ethereum is a second-generation blockchain. So I do remember when they were coming out, well, when Cardano was coming out, and they said, Cardano's the Ethereum killer. And that actually has been playing out pretty well. So whether it does totally kill Ethereum, I guess we're going to see, right? So I wanted to talk to you about something else. Now, I didn't record a video yesterday, and the reason is my mind was processing some new information. Now, what if there was another third-generation blockchain out there that you've never even heard of? They already have not only a minimum viable product out there, but they actually have it working in a business-to-business setting, and that it can do 8 million transactions per second on their benchmark test. And if they scale even more nodes, now they use a sharding solution for this. And as one of the people described it, it's so elegant in its simplicity that it's incredible the technology behind this. Well, so Angel, who you've met from the show, introduced me to some people related to this project, and I spoke to them. And I was, I guess, very skeptical because my thought was, I've been doing 3 hours of research a day for 4 years. If there was something out there like that, I would have heard of it, right? And in all likelihood, that's true, that I would have heard of it. So he put me in contact with one of his friends who was an advisor to the company, and I spoke to him. And the people that they've got lined up on this team for this blockchain are top-rate professionals. And I thought, gosh, this is so interesting. I'm still having a hard time understanding why I haven't heard of it. And one of the biggest reasons is that, you know, you think you would have heard of it because the model that most follow is, hey, we've got an idea. We're going to go out, raise a bunch of funds, and in order to then hire the programmers to develop this idea, and that gets a token out there and it helps build awareness and grows it, and eventually we'll have a product and solution ready and available, and so they're selling kind of the vision of what they want to do in order to raise funds. Well, what if these people are already wealthy that created it, and they didn't need outside money to fund the development of it, and have fully created it over the past 5 years? And that they already have a solution as of 3 years ago that can do 8 million transactions per second. In fact, their sharding solution isn't too different from the Hydra solution of Charles Hoskinson, but it's already in implementation and already been implemented. And they have taken the time over the past 3 years to patent all their technology behind this. And that they're already going out to businesses and getting businesses to use it as basically a database solution for them. So if you think about why blockchains are revolutionary, it has nothing to do with speed, or in the past has had nothing to do with speed, because they're actually much slower than centralized data storage solutions. But the security and the permissionless nature of things is what they like about the blockchain. The fact that people can interact with it from all over the world, and if they show the right permissions, they can then get access to the things that they're supposed to have access to if it's set up right. So there's so many great things about blockchain, but speed has never been one of the great things about it. But what I always thought is at some point they will find a way to make blockchains as fast or faster than centralized database. In fact, Cardano and Polkadot, that's one of the big things they've been working on is, hey, we're so fast and so inexpensive that, we're going to save companies money by using us for database warehousing or whatever for them, right? What if there was a solution that could already do 8 million transactions per second? In fact, because of their scaling, they could do more than that. And the cost for those transactions is 1/1,000,000th of what Ethereum is. So not like Binance Smart Chain that saves you like 1/1000th of what Ethereum was, but what if the cost saving, it was 1/1,000,000th? So I've been, I took all of yesterday to process and further research that. Now, for those who are in the US and accredited investors, and you want to know more, it's not that they're looking for funds. They're open to just 1 or 2 more people, and they don't need these funds. The people that are behind this already have it, but because they allowed somebody else to invest, they did open up a round of funding that they've almost filled already. And so if you're an accredited investor and want to speak to me, I will tell you what I know, but more importantly, I'll put you in touch with the right people behind the team. Because you don't have to believe me on any of this, and I don't want you to. I don't want you to rely on what I say or what I think about it, though. So I will be investing in this round of funding that they're doing. Now, they will do a token. They don't need to do a token for their blockchain. They have a very good blockchain they don't need a token for, that they can go out there and get tons of business contracts, and they're in the process of going that route. But secondarily to that, they are going to do a token because they like the idea that average people can make money on their blockchain, which is fantastic, right? Why not open it up so that people can make money with a token on their blockchain that with that technology can do really good things? So probably they will do an ICO. It might be 5 months down the road or so. And when they do, unfortunately, they're going to have to not allow U.S. investors. I don't even know that they'll be allowing accredited U.S. investors, because at that point it's really hard when on mass fundraising. Usually they just have to restrict certain countries like China and the U.S. just for compliance reasons. And so they're being very careful with their compliance because their blockchain solution is actually very government friendly in that they can set up specific solutions for each country to be able to be in compliance with those countries as far as companies using their database and data storage solutions. So I won't go too much further in that, but if you fall in that category and you're a U.S. accredited investor and to the realm of $50,000 to $100,000 is not a lot for you, then you can reach out to me through my Twitter. And if you're not interested at all, great. And I don't want you to be interested based on what I'm saying. But if I, like you, I will put you in contact with the people that you can talk to see if you're interested. But you will have to verify that you're an accredited investor. And if that kind of investment amount is a lot of money to you, just don't even worry about it. It's okay. There's plenty of amazing opportunities out here where you can only put a smaller amount in, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, and do better in the blockchain space. We are right in the middle of the bull market. This isn't the only opportunity to do really well with, but if you fall into that category and you're looking to get into pre-sale pricing on something that has some potentially really high upside, I'll put you in touch with the right people to speak to about that to see if you are interested. So, on to other subjects. Stocks haven't been doing great, but they haven't been doing terrible. There was a big pullback, some scares because, oh my gosh, the Fed is going to raise interest rates, and the Fed is no longer keeping interest rates low to stimulate the economy. I don't know how that'll all work out. What do I expect if the stock market crashes? Well, I'll tell you. I don't exactly know, but there is some correlation between stocks and cryptocurrency. And I want to show you March 20th, 2020, when stocks, this was a panic because of coronavirus and all these companies shutting down business operations because the government was telling them to. And so let's look at what was happening with Bitcoin on March 20th, 2020. In fact, let's go to the daily, and this is going to be much easier to see. All right. Oh my gosh, correlation, right? Because Bitcoin fell off a cliff too. So will that happen if stocks dive and take a nosedive? Probably initially. What caused this is when institutional investors saw that their stock portfolio was going in the tank, what happened was actually kind of interesting. Because they were in this risky asset called Bitcoin, which actually shouldn't cycle with stock markets, they sold their risky asset to float their balance sheets because their stocks were doing terrible. And when they started dumping their risky asset to then have more cash on hand to make their balance sheets look a little bit better because their stocks were plummeting, well, it drove Bitcoin down from, it had been at 10,000, had already come down to 9,000, and then it stopped at like 7,300 and then went bam, all the way down for a brief moment, all the way down here to about 3,800. Now, should that have happened? It doesn't matter what should or shouldn't happen. It only matters what did, and it did happen. So, if stocks go in the tank here, what will happen? Well, I think initially they'll be correlated. But what my guess is will happen is that the correlation will decrease. And say that finally, after so much stimulation and everything, and such a large run in the stock market, that stocks start taking a tumble. And then it compounds on itself that people lose faith in that system and it tumbles some more. My guess is that cryptocurrency then comes down too, and could come all the way down here and still be in a semi-healthy pattern. And then people realize, there's a lot of scare and a lot of panic selling, and then people start to realize, oh my gosh, Bitcoin is a good hedge against the dollar value and the dollar decreasing because the government's just printing so many dollars, yet the number of Bitcoin ultimately is fixed. And so then all of a sudden, while the stock market continues to plummet because then people are dumping their stocks and they're rolling it into an inflation hedge, which Bitcoin is a fantastic inflation hedge, well then probably we would then overboom at that point. Now, that's just my best guess. None of this today is financial advice. I'm no financial advisor. I'm just a crypto investor, and only for 4 years that I've been following this. Now, prior to that, I've been a real estate investor for 20 years. I'm not new to business. I'm not new to real estate investing. I'm not new to investing in general, but I'm relatively new to crypto investing. 4 years might seem like a lot if you're brand new in this space. It's not a lot, but I have spent a lot of time also looking back to previous cycles to understand the cyclical nature of Bitcoin. And as you can see, it is very cyclical. It's remarkably cyclical. So, Am I expecting it to come all the way down to zero? I would be shocked. I don't believe it. But all of the money I have in the market, if I lost everything, that's still not going to put me out of my house. It's not going to, like, you know, it will hurt deeply, but it's not going to put me homeless on the street. I haven't borrowed any money to be able to invest in this stuff. And so that's a strong point to be investing from, because that, if things turn bad, or at least turn bad shortly, it doesn't put you out of your rent or out of, you know, missing mortgage payments and potentially losing your house. Does that make sense? So, if you like making money and you like to understand the principles of business, like the channel, I greatly appreciate it, and subscribe. And I did want to hit for you little song that I had put together, and unfortunately I can't hear it at the same time you're hearing it, but nice gal from Argentina had record this for me. I wrote the words and still working on something I like a little bit better, maybe something a little bit more hip-hop-ish, but how to do this, I'm continuing to improve the channel and work on things. Now, I've only had this channel active, that I've been uploading content for a little over 7 weeks, so relatively new channel. I think we're at about 6,600 subscribers, so I want to thank all of you who have joined the Rainmaker team and are helping us grow. I appreciate your support. I try to upload at least once a day, sometimes multiple times a day, and sometimes, like yesterday, I just took off to process what I was learning about that. Now, you will notice that people, scammers, try to copy me, and what they'll do is they'll copy my image and they'll make it say Crypto Rain as the name. If it doesn't have a black circle around it, it is not me. If they're giving you a WhatsApp number to call, that is not me. If you want to reach me, you can reach me through my Twitter handle, and you can see it right there in the description. I sometimes can respond to those, sometimes not. I'm better at responding right in the chat of this when I can, but if you don't see Crypto Rain with a black circle around it, it is not me. And I will not be asking you to call me there. I will not be saying, hey, send an email to this. The only contact I do give out on this is my Twitter handle, which is in the descriptions below, and you can find it. So, if we're under 50% likes versus the views, all you Rainmakers, would you please hit the like button and help me out and help me grow this channel so I can keep providing you valuable content. And I want to, when we get to certain points, it'll be easy for me to bring on the very best guests. And that's really what I want to do with this channel, is I want to have direct access to all the big players, all the different teams and project developers, because I want to be able to speak to them on a regular basis, because I'm most interested in the information that is not private information that they can't disclose, but the information that's maybe not at public awareness yet, because then you have an edge when you learn all the non-private information that hasn't hit public awareness, because you know the right people. That helps you make better decisions on your investing. And what I want to do is not only learn that information, but share that information with you. In fact, my goal is to have them come on the channel, and then we can do live streams and Ask Me Anything interviews where you can ask them the questions too. And that was why I started this channel. That was the biggest portion of the reason of why I started this channel. So, if you want to help me get there, I'd appreciate it greatly, because, you know, crypto investing is the way I plan to take care of my family for life. And I have been investing, that's why I've been investing so much time per day, because I realized we were onto something great. Now, I've been bantering back and forth with one of my frequent subscribers who tends to be pretty funny and very sarcastic, and he said, wow, why do you always bring up real estate investing if you love crypto so much? And I said, I hate crypto. Real estate is the best thing ever. And he thought I was serious there. I do love real estate. It's fantastic. But there's a reason when I found out what crypto was all about that I've dedicated a lot of times with this, because number one, we're really early in the technology itself, and the technology will change our world. What I like about being very early in this is, imagine if you got the invite to be very early to Microsoft, or even to Amazon, or even to Google, and to invest. And so how you can invest in these things is very different than how you would have been able to be a part of Microsoft back then. But this is early stage technology that will change the world. Also, because of the 4-year cycle with it, the cycle, that's actually a pretty small investment cycle, a pretty short one. What I love about that is the real estate investment cycle. Usually you'll have a bull market that'll go for it'll take about 8 years. Sometimes 10 years before then hitting a downturn, which will last several years. And so it's a really slow turnaround. Sometimes it'll go up only for about 4 or 5 years before then having a downturn. But from end to end, sometimes that whole cycle is 10 to 15 years. Whereas in crypto, the 4-year cycle is amazingly short. So it makes it easy to figure out, okay, I'm going to start selling as it's going up here, because you never know where the top is. I'm going to take profits, take profits, take profits. And then I'm going to wait for it to retrace. I'm going to buy things cheaper. And then you rinse and repeat. So what I'm hoping is that I add lots of value to you so that you want to subscribe. So not only can we talk about taking profit strategies as it's going up this year, but then we can be researching and learning and growing, and I'll talk more about investing principles and other things and looking for other opportunities while most of this is downsliding here. Like you see the same patterns kind of happen here. This is a great time to be growing and developing further, because actually the investments you make in your own education, the return on investment on that is usually higher than any other type of investment. And this is a fantastic time frame to be growing and developing and learning yourself while you're waiting the market to go to bottoms. And when the market comes to what looks like a nice rounded bottom, you see a rounded bottom here, you see a rounded bottom here, this little takeoff here shouldn't have happened, but it did, and it was mostly because of Bitcoin scam that happened in China and India. But it should have had a bigger rounded bottom. It didn't because of that scam, and it got a bunch of people really excited in, hey, yeah, we have this trading algorithm, and if you invest and bring your friends to invest, essentially it was a pyramid scheme that eventually popped and exploded and hurt all those people. And that stuff happens in crypto. If somebody tells you they have a trading algorithm that can pay you out 1 or 2 or 3% a day, every time they've said that, it's always turned out to be a scam. Alright, so this big rounded bottom, so we'll probably look like this and then have a big rounded bottom. And that'll be a great time to be further growing, developing ourselves. And this channel will continue, but we'll talk more about business principles, and we'll be looking at what is a great opportunity to have our money in that'll be fairly liquid, that can do good during this period rather than being in crypto where most cryptos are going to downturn. So, love it if you liked and subscribed to the channel, and if this isn't right for you, that's okay too. But with that said, we will see you next time.